Gatineau, here with
Francine Dumas du Rassemblement Outaouais contre la guerre.
and
Pete, translator.
Parmi les demandes, il y en a plusieurs, mais en autre que les traités qui ont été signés soient respectés par le gouvernement du Québec. Il y a aussi des situations assez choquantes que je trouve que tout Québécois devrait dénoncer. Le fait qu'il y a plusieurs barrages d'Hydro-Québec qui ont été construits sur leur territoire, et eux n'ont même pas accès à l'électricité. Ils veulent avoir aussi le droit que la langue algonquine soit enseignée dans les écoles, pour que les enfants puissent rapatrier leur culture et leur langue.
So she says she's here for a lot of many demands, one of which is the treaty processes that should be respected by the Quebec government. Another one is the deplorable conditions that people have to live in Barriere Lake. For example, there's a lot of hydro dams on their land, but they don't actually have access to any of the power being produced by them. And
Just coup.
oh, and also demanding that their languages be taught in schools.
We're here to demand a meeting with the minister and for a leadership reselection.
And what do you hope to achieve from this meeting?
Well, I hope we get a response to have a leadership reselection in our community.
Well, we're here to demand that the minister live up to their promises that they made to us.
So the government made promises. Did they keep any of those promises?
They never kept one promise that they made to us. 50 houses in 5 years? Never. We haven't even seen that. That was back in 2000. And review its decision that is made to impose a chief and council on us and the majority of the people. And this is what we're trying to straighten out, because no government is allowed to overthrow another government. So that's why we're here, is to straighten up that mess that they created.
We're here because right now 8 members of the Barriere Lake Algonquin community and some of their supporters from Montreal are occupying Lawrence Cannon's office, who's the MP for the Barriere Lake community. And they're demanding, first of all, a meeting with Lawrence Cannon and also asking him for the government to initiate a new leadership reselection process. Because right now the government is recognizing a minority faction as the legitimate leadership of Barriere Lake. So we're asking that their customary code of governance and leadership selection be respected. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people compare what happened at Barriere Lake to a coup d'etat. Would you use this comparison?
Yes, I mean, that definitely is what people are saying and how people in the community feel. So the minority faction right now represents about 20% of the community members, whereas 80% of the community supports the traditional leadership of Barriere Lake. Well, the current situation is primarily the leadership crisis. It's been very divisive in the community, so we're hoping to resolve that. I mean, there are other more long-standing issues, such as the government's the Trilateral Agreement and how the government isn't respecting that process. So those are more long-term issues, but if Barriere Lake has a leadership that most of the community supports and can speak for the community, not just for a minority in the community, we're hoping that these more long-term issues can be resolved.
So you're actually going to occupy the MP's office?
Well, it's open sit-in right now, so no doors will be locked, but they're planning on staying until the demands are met.
And when was this decision made?
To occupy the office? About a week ago.
And what do they hope to achieve?
They hope to achieve to have their traditional leadership that's supported by the majority of the community, recognized by the government.
And is most of the occupation done by the people from Barriere Lake or by the Solidarity Committee?
There are about 8 people from Barriere Lake and 4 members of the Solidarity Committee.
And just real quick, how did this Solidarity Committee come about?
Well, initially it formed as a result of some members from Barriere Lake came down and held a public forum in which they discussed the situation in Barriere Lake that a lot of people went to, and out of that the Solidarity Committee was formed. Well, we couldn't all meet outside the occupation, so we met here.
Thank you very much. Just one last quick question, sorry. People who have been to Barriere Lake describe it as one of the poorest reserves in Canada, in urbanized Canada. Is Leah Turchansky with?
Free will.
And are you here on your own or with a group?
I'm here on my own.
And why did you come today?
I came today because I believe that Canada has no right to interfere in the sovereignty of First Nations, and that Canada's interference in Barriere Lake is illegal according to Canada's laws and is immoral and imperialist and a racist intervention, and that it should halt, and that all conflicts and imperialist aggressions made by the Canadian state everywhere around the world, both at home and abroad, should come to an end right now. These people were robbed of their traditional way of life, and they were it was replaced with a faulty replica system that is now underfunded and totally neglected. For example, I just heard that in the school the Barriere Lake children are not allowed to speak Algonquin. So what they've had to do, what the members of the community have had to do, is start an alternative school that receives no funding, where the children can actually receive education in their language rather than the language of the imperialist, racist oppressor.
Almost a year ago, actually precisely a year ago, on June 29th, the Barriere Lake folks camped out on Parliament Hill demanding government attention to what's going on in the reserve, and the government came out in order to get them off the land, off of Parliament Hill, by July 1st, by Canada Day. They came out and they made promises, and now a year later we're seeing none of those promises actually coming true. Do you think if Indian Affairs officials were to come out to get the protesters off of here making promises, do you think they would stick this time?
Non. Je pense que la seule façon que les promesses vont être respectées, c'est si derrière les communautés algonquines, il y a du monde, il y a de la population du Québec qui exige du gouvernement de les respecter et de respecter leurs paroles. Il faut que les gens soient derrière. Tout seul, tu peux pas. Moi, je ne crois pas. Je pense que même les peuples algonquins ne peuvent pas les croire.
She said, no, there's no way that the government can be trusted. There's no reason to believe them. The only way that the treaties and demands will be respected and met is if people from Quebec and Canada stand in solidarity with the Algonquin folks and support their struggle.
And we've seen Barriere Lake folks come here to Ottawa a number of times now, with the Parliament Hill sit-in last year. Do you think this time the government's promises will be held?
Well, I can only hope so, but I mean, history has shown otherwise. But
what could you recommend for allies, activists that want to help? What would you recommend them do?
In the past, when we were fighting with the Quebec governments on logging issue, I mean, the support came from all over the world. So whatever organizations that they have to support in any way that they can, well, that's the kind of support we're looking for here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.